Welcome, my name's Mark Faith. Today, what I want to do is take you through our journey of how we're using Asset Intellect within AGL. So, first of all, I'm hoping that I can move the slide. So I'll move the slide now to slide 10. Okay, so name's Mark Faith, fitter and turner by trade, then spent a few years in condition monitoring, 31 years experienced in the electrical generation. It's all I've really done is electrical generation. Somehow I managed to look after the ecosystem, which also includes the OSI Pi in our data system. We also now look after drones and robotics and the operational diagnostic centre, but our main goal is being able to provide the data that is useful for the people on site. Next slide. Thank you. So, introduction to AGL. We've got over 184 year history from lighting the first gas lamp in 1841 in the streets of Sydney. We now generate over 11,000 megawatts of electricity, approximately 20% of the total Australian eastern seaboard requirement. We have things from our traditional thermal gas, brown coal, which, as you've seen, we're shutting down very shortly. Natural gas storage, as well as our renewables from hydro, wind, solar, battery, and obviously there's emerging technologies as well. Next slide, please. So our issue is with all this and all our systems is where all this data resides. How do we bring all this data together? And it's a problem we've had for many years. So in the past, we've had problems with dashboards and people producing dashboards in Excel, and they do Power BI or they use another program. All our reporting systems are all different. We have a document library. People put things in SharePoint, Teams in local drives or the cloud. So where do I go to get all this information? And from day to day, week to week, I'm going to 10 different places. So next part is how do we find something that's ease of navigation? It's multi-program integration, so I can bring different systems together. It's web-based, so I don't have to install anything on the computer. We can also use mobility. We can look at version control. And as an added bonus, can I bring in alarm and events into a system as well? So that being the case, our logical choice is when we were searching and searching and searching, we came across Asset Intellect. So how do we bring this all together? Logical choice was Asset Intellect. Next slide, please. Okay. The one thing we really sold us with Asset Intellect to start with was the hierarchy down the left-hand side. Yeah, some people say, oh, it's old school, it's not web, but hey, it works and it's very easy to navigate compared to your SharePoints and Teams. Try to find something in Teams, good luck. One of my pet hates. It allows us to bring all this data in together. Next slide, please. So that's our landing page. And then from the top of the hierarchy, we can build things in different ways. We can have a logical hierarchy that people can drill down even on our sites. But then our team in Melbourne and our corporate offices and our COO can just go into the top level, which is the asset overviews, and get all the information he or she needs to bring a logical understanding of what's happening on site. So with this page, we're bringing data in through a system called RT Duet, and it's actually pulling data in from an SQL database, and that's showing our D rates, which are currently on site. If we go to the next slide, we can have an overview of our, this is a Pi Vision screen, an overview of our renewable assets. So nice and quick and easy. I don't have to go into Pi Vision and find a version that is correct. I can actually go in and say, hey, this is the trusted version. And in the top right-hand corner, you can see it's just in dark blue. We do have a version. So we can understand what version we're on, and we know it's a qualified version. So next slide, please. The other thing we can do is as we drill down further in and we make it useful for the people on site, we can actually replicate. And what we've done here is this is a Pi Vision screen again, and we've replicated the HDMI screens. So for us, our maintenance personnel and even our engineers, before going up on site, and especially our hydro sites, which could be 20 minutes and up to, in some cases, 2 hours away from the depot, they can actually view what's happening through the HDMI screen, where before they had to go to site to actually see what was going on. So now we've actually been able to reproduce that in the HMI screens. Thank you. This has happened just recently, and this next screen, it's various sources of data being able to present on one page. And I must say the team at Dimension have done a great job at being able to mix these together, and it's a matter of making sure we have the right information on the page. So we're using this for our control center for our dispatch center for the renewable site. At the top is a Pi Vision screen. That data is coming from Pi. And same with the top right, that's coming from Pi as well. That's giving us our reference data. That's coming actually from external, from AMO, and we're bringing that in through an IoT hub. But the graph or the data at the bottom is actually coming from a SQL database. And this gives them their trading information. And it allows us to print Pi Vision pages and a SQL underneath, and then be able to color code respectively on that as well. So it's a great versatile way of presenting data that normal Pi system cannot do. Next. Taking that a step further, we had a challenge with our environmental group, and this group, they had built spreadsheets for years and years and years. It evolved into the point where it actually took them a couple of days to produce a 3-monthly report to probably over a week to produce an annual report. We sat down and we looked at the workflow and we looked at how it all brought together. And one of our challenges was they had to edit data. So when it came back, or they had data come in from a lab or from the instruments, in some cases they had to edit it. So what we've been able to do is use the SQL Editor to give them a window to edit that data, and from that being able to produce the reports at the end of the 3 months or at the end of the year or half yearly automatically. So with that, in the top left-hand corner, the team can do it themselves. We've given them access. They can select the period, they can select the monitoring point, then they select the analyte, which in this case is volume, and then they can go through and they can delete or they can edit and this data, which is then written back into Pi or the SQL automatically with no real issues. It's just a native function of the system. They can go in at any time and do that for us. Next slide, please. The other added benefit that we've really found, again, we're going back to interactive displays for the trading people and dispatch, is the ability to have those systems update and the graphs update on an as-needs basis. So this can be up on the wall. They can have their mouse, they can select the dispatch pricing region. So for this case, we've selected in blue the New South Wales one. We can select Eildon, and on the right-hand side, the graph will come up looking into the future for the recommended retail price of what's that's going to be, and then under that, what the site, being Eildon, is going to be, dispatched at. And they can click through those, and that graph on the right-hand side will update. And that's a mixture again of an SQL data, so not just the Pi data. Here we've taken another step which is looking at, we're looking at our FCAS, and we'll talk, this is going to have a few slides actually. So with our system, we can see that we might be off target. So the alarm will raise in the control room, but they might know why they're off target. So they can quickly come into here, select the date, select the dispatcher. Obviously, we can go back in time as well from the two left-hand side. In number 3, dispatch interval details, we pick up Dartmouth and we can actually see that it was off target. Gives us a bit of information, but then what we can do is the DUID details in 4, we can actually see what the trend was happening for them right there and then. Now they can export that, and they can dive into why they are off target or why they were off target. So as a history. This is something that in previously was very difficult for us to do, especially in just straight PI vision. We couldn't do that. This is has been built totally in Asset Intellect. Next screen, please. Then this is the FCAS, the Frequency Control Auxiliary Service. So when there's a frequency disturbance, we have to respond. As a generator, that generator has to respond within reason and within certain parameters. It's always good to keep an eye on how this is going and how it's going, because if you don't respond, you can actually end up with quite a large fine from AMO, the governing body. So what we do is we have our data coming in from site, which is normally 1 second data. But then what we've been able to do is pull in our high frequency data from our protection relays. And that gets pulled in every couple of hours. And then we run a Python script over it. And we also use Py to help create an event frame. Then we use the event viewer to be able to display that, actually have a look at the data. So with that, you can see here I've highlighted that AGL Loyang A1 generator, we had an event. Now on the left hand side you can see an arrow and you can see a page and also a little trend. So from that we can click on those and we can get more information. So we can see if we go to the next slide. Thank you. We can have a look at what actually happened within that system. So the purple is the high frequency data. So you can see where it deviated and how it responded to the low frequency data, which is in the green. If we go to the next slide, what happens is we also run the a Python script over it. And that Python script then creates 3 reports. So we have an FCAS PDF, we have a high speed for AMO, and we have a low speed for AMO. So they're reports that we are already set and we can set to AMO. But from that, in the attachment, we don't have to go looking for them. They're here saved underneath that event. And all you got to do is click on it and bring it up, and you've got all that data in that one place now. So next screen. What we've also done is able to edit that event. So if someone's reviewed it and they can put their name as the reviewer and they can edit the details within the event. So this just allows us to do, in certain cases, in certain events, be able to record things against it and put some information here for the next person coming in. Next slide. Excuse me. Another part of Asset Intellect, what Asset Intellect has allowed us to do, is start making what we call Athena asset health dashboards. In the past, engineers are trying to look after their plant. This plant, they're getting data from laboratories, they're getting real-time data. and they can't look, or they're not looking at, or they can get distracted from an outage or something like that. So they might miss or they might miss a small trend. And in some case, we've had failures that have taken, when we look back, have taken 3 to 4 years to generate. The problem is we've normalised it because it's just been a very slow trend over 4 years. So one of the problems we had was data requires interpretation. We miss trends, right? An operator or an engineer cannot sit at his computer or her computer 8 hours a day looking at the trends. We also have various site expertise. Some people are very good, some people are very young. So we came up with a dashboard which, using AF, allows us to standardize those calculations and have this in an area in the Asset Intellect that anybody can go to and view, and they can have it up on their walls and they can quickly change. So if we go to the next slide. Once we find the problem, we looked at Unit 3, and actually Unit 3 had 2 alarms on it. What we've been able to do is, this is the detailed view. And what this view does, it allows us to bring all that data together, which can be the lab results, doing calculation in AF, if you've used manual logger or you've used data coming in from a manual system. We can bring that in and we pull it all in and we put alarms and alerts around it. So what we've looked at here is the red on the highest data temp. We can see that the generator temp, rotor bar 74, is higher than normal. So what we're trying to do here is just show that, hey, we haven't diagnosed what the problem is, but we're alerting the engineer that this is different and it's higher than where you normally would like it, and it should be. We're not at failure yet, but it gives him or her time to react into an action and do maintenance on these systems before it actually fails. And a generator can cost $30 million to rewind, not something, and plus loss of generation, not something you really want to experience. Next slide, please. Okay. One of our big bugbears was reporting. And where do I go to get a report? It's in SharePoint or it's in Teams. Which team is it? And if anyone's like me, they've got a list as long as your arm in Teams, and it takes ages to find anything. So what we did is we set up an area in our Asset Intellect. You can see here it's business reporting. We have availability, capital projects, compliance, health and safety. And here we are in performance. So we produce a performance report every month. This is a platform where people know they can just go to get the relevant reports. Within that, the reports are PDF'd. So this will go all the way, in some cases, to the board. And they have access to Asset Intellect. They've asked us for access, which everyone has got. We've opened it up to everybody. And they can go back in time and have a look at those reports. They can download them, but they know where to get them from. So making sure that data is available when they need it. Next slide, please. The other part of that is, once you've read the report, within that area, we've also hosted the Power BI report, so that you can click on any of those sites, which could be Loy Yang A, and then drill down through the Power BI reports to actually go further down in the data. So we have both sets of information side by side. So if we go one more, we're now using Power BI within Asset Intellect. We haven't had to go think about, hey, where is Power BI? Where's that report? We just have to know we have to go here. We can find the PDF, and the next tab across on the right will be the further data. Also, in this case, we're producing reports using a Python script again on PyData, and we're producing heat maps. Very difficult to do in our regular PyVision or things like this. We just produce them in PDF, but we find that this is where people are asking for these type of things to go, so they can find them. Next one, this is our journey, alarm and events. One of our problems is in the past, if there's something's been wrong on site, we've had to ring site and ask them, hey, can you download the alarm and events from the control system? Using the alarm and events integrator, we've been able to pull this data into OSI Pi. Then with the help of Dimension software, we've pulled that string apart and got our alarm and events into the system. That means even sitting here at home today, I can use Asset Intellect using Alarm Sentinel and pull in those alarms. What we're finding is even the techs on site who have access to the DCS are using this system now because they're finding it easier to use than the control system to go through the alarm and events to filter. But it allows us great flexibility now and access to that data that we never had before. And if we go to the next slide, we're just probably 75% of the way through configuring our first KPIs. In the past, we download this data into a database, and then we create a Power BI report over the top of that. Very manual orientated. This will do this automatically for us. So once we do this, we can start managing our alarms. That's a bit of our journey. So next slide. That's our journey. We're still developing. We're still learning how to use Asset Intellect and how we get the most out of it. It does take time, and you do need that governance model over the top of it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. We haven't received any questions from the audience. One question I would like to ask is just with the alarm data that you're seeing there in Asset Intellect, that's coming through from Alarm Sentinel, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Fantastic.
Yep.
And obviously you've got a fair bit more that you want to do with that alarm data.
Oh, look, it's even going to get more and more as we push and as we close down our coal-fired power stations and we start bringing in batteries and all these remote assets. It's going to become more vital that we pull those alarm data in, especially wind farms. Wind farms are constantly pushing alarms in, and we're still embarking in trying to get that data out of the wind farm. So it's a challenge. We're not 100% there. I would say in the case with our data, we're probably 60 to 70% of the data we want in the system that we can use for alarm and events. But we'll keep chipping away.
Okay, thank you. We have received one question from one of our audience. How do you connect the HMI into Asset Intellect?
So it's not actually, well, it's a funny one. All I did, it's not actually connected. What we did is I went around and took a picture of all the HMI screens. And then we actually replicate it. So we actually sit down with the DCS engineer, and we first of all we drew them, and then we made sure all the points were the same. So it's not actually connected. We're just bringing the data in, but we make it look the same. That's the beauty of it. The operator on site is used to that grey screen, so he or she, it's no different for them. There's nothing worse when you're getting it different to what's on site. So we just exactly copied what we had. In some cases, you can copy the graphics. In some cases, you can't.
Excellent. And those mimics that you've created are all done in Pi Vision. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. We still have some legacy of process books, but most of the stuff we do now is in Pi Vision, and that is a Pi Vision screen. Yes.